Everybody knows what a supercar is supposed to be: low, fast, and expensive. In my previous videos, that's exactly the kind of vehicle we've been looking at. But what if we started from the exact opposite direction? What if the goal wasn't performance, but simply moving two people through a city using the least amount of car possible? The Citroën AMI is often dismissed as a toaster on wheels. And to be fair, Citroën's own marketing leans in that direction. But I think the AMI is one of the most misunderstood vehicles of the last decade, because underneath its quirky appearance is a masterclass in engineering efficiency. Every strange decision, every unusual proportion, every exposed component exists because somebody was trying to remove complexity, remove weight, remove cost, or remove parts altogether. So today, let's take apart the Citroën AMI. The first thing to understand about the AMI is that it isn't really trying to compete with conventional cars. It's solving a completely different problem. The AMI belongs to the L6E category, a class of light quadricycles designed for low-speed transportation. To qualify, it must remain below strict limits: 45 km per hour as max speed and 425 kg excluding the battery as the maximum weight. Those restrictions sound severe, but they unlock something important. The AMI can exist in a space somewhere between a scooter and a traditional car, protected from the weather, easy to park, accessible, and surprisingly affordable. Once you understand those rules, many of the strange decisions start making sense. And nowhere is that more obvious than its size. The AMI measures just 2.41 meters in length. That's already tiny by European standards. But numbers don't really tell the story. So let's compare it with something from the opposite end of the spectrum: a Ford F-350. The truck stretches more than 6.3 meters long and stands over 2 meters tall. The roof of the AMI barely reaches the hood of the truck. It's less than half the length, almost toy-like by comparison. And yet, despite being dramatically shorter, the AMI still carries two people. Because Citroën approached the problem differently. Instead of stretching the car horizontally, they built vertically. The footprint remains tiny, the occupants sit upright, and the available volume is used more efficiently. Because once you decide to make a car this small, every millimeter matters. The AMI takes a completely different approach to most manufacturers. Look closely at the front and rear. The shapes feel strangely familiar. The lighting feels familiar. The bumpers feel familiar. They are the same component. The next clue appears before you even get inside. The AMI's doors don't open the same way. The passenger door behaves normally. The driver's door is hinged at the rear. Not because Citroën wanted to be quirky, but because they are actually the same component. One door, used twice. Flip it around, mount it on the opposite side, done. Fewer unique parts, fewer tools, less inventory, lower costs. And that's significant, because large production tools are expensive. Very expensive. What's fascinating is that Citroën didn't hide the decision. They embraced it. The same ideas keep reappearing. The question being asked throughout the design seems remarkably simple. Can this part perform more than one job? Can this idea be used more than once? And the answer appears again and again. What's fascinating is that these ideas weren't invented late in development. Many of them already existed in the AMI 1 concept. Offset seating, repeated elements, symmetry, door straps. The philosophy was already there. And unlike most concept cars, the production vehicle didn't abandon those ideas. It pushed them even further. Most concept cars become diluted, the AMI became more focused. Now let's look underneath, because the AMI isn't built like a conventional car. Most modern cars rely on stamped steel structures, large body panels, complex crash structures and massive manufacturing investments. The AMI doesn't. Underneath the body sits a simple welded tubular frame, a lightweight skeleton that provides the vehicle's structure. And because the AMI belongs to the L6E category, the requirements are very different from those of a normal passenger car. The structure can be simpler, lighter, and cheaper to produce. You're not looking at a miniature conventional car. You're looking at a vehicle designed around the minimum structure necessary to do its job. Once the structure is simplified, the next target becomes manufacturing cost. And that's where the body panels come in. Most cars are painted. The AMI isn't. Its plastic panels are colored directly in the material itself. No paint shop, no paint defects, no paint process. And that's a huge deal. Paint facilities are among the most expensive parts of automotive manufacturing. By eliminating paint entirely, Citroën removes a significant source of cost and complexity. The benefits don't stop there. The panels are lightweight, resistant to corrosion, and easier to replace after minor damage. Again, what looks like a design decision is actually a manufacturing decision. At this point you might be wondering, did Citroën realize how ridiculous this thing looked? Oh, absolutely. In fact, they leaned into it. Hard. The AMI wasn't marketed as a serious automobile. It was compared to household objects. Toasters, bathtubs, everyday appliances. Citroën understood something important. People were going to make jokes about the AMI anyway. So they got there first. Instead of fighting the weirdness, they embraced it. And somehow, that made the AMI even more memorable. By now, a pattern is emerging. The AMI removes complexity wherever possible, which makes one feature feel completely out of place. The panoramic roof. At first glance, it feels almost luxurious, which seems strange on a vehicle designed around cost reduction. It seems irrational. Why not use a simple opaque roof? The explanation may have less to do with luxury than psychology. The AMI is tiny, really tiny. The risk isn't just lack of space. Without all that glass, the cabin would feel cramped, boxy, claustrophobic. It's feeling like there's no space. The glass roof helps solve that problem. It floods the cabin with light, and it opens the environment. It makes the interior feel larger than it really is. And that's fascinating, because the roof isn't making the car bigger, it's making it feel bigger. One of the strangest details inside the AMI is something many people never notice. The seats aren't aligned. The passenger sits further back than the driver. At first glance, it feels odd, but there's a very practical reason behind it. The AMI is only 1.5 meters wide. That doesn't leave much room for two adults sitting shoulder to shoulder. By staggering the seats, Citroën creates additional shoulder room without making the vehicle any wider. And there's another benefit. Moving the passenger rearward creates additional room in front of them. Enough space for storage. A surprisingly useful feature in a vehicle this small. What's interesting is that this isn't a budget car solution. As you can see here, Ferrari uses a similar idea in the F80. Gordon Murray has explored similar concepts too with their 3-seater lineup. Very different vehicles, very different price tags. Exactly the same packaging logic. Most modern cars are very good at hiding how they are built. The structure disappears behind trim, the mechanisms disappear, the fasteners disappear. The AMI takes a different approach. The upper tubular structure remains visible, painted black, but exposed. And that's incredibly unusual for a major manufacturer. Once you notice that philosophy, it starts appearing everywhere. The storage uses simple nets. The doors use simple straps. The phone replaces a dedicated infotainment system. Instead of asking what can we add, the engineers often seem to have asked what can we remove. And that's an important distinction, because by the end, the interior starts feeling less like a collection of compromises and more like a collection of deliberate choices. A good platform shouldn't create one product, it should create many. And that's exactly what happened with the AMI. Enter the AMI Cargo. Citroën removed the passenger seat and transformed the space into a modular cargo area. The result? 260 liters of dedicated storage, 140 kilograms of payload, more than 400 liters of total usable volume. And because the floor can be reconfigured, objects up to 1.2 meters long can be carried inside. The clever part isn't the volume, it's how little had to change. The platform remained largely the same, only the mission changed. That's why now you find AMIs working in airports, industrial sites, in maintenance fleets, and last-mile delivery services. The AMI wasn't just transportation anymore, it became a tool. And then Citroën decided to have some fun. The AMI buggy removes the doors, removes the conventional roof, adds tubular side structures, and even gets a rear spoiler. Whether a spoiler improves performance on a 45 km/h vehicle is perhaps a discussion for another day. But that's not really the point. The buggy exists because the platform was flexible enough to become something playful, something unnecessary, and that's often where the most memorable vehicles come from. The strongest validation of the AMI wasn't a sales number. It was what happened next. Because Citroën wasn't the only brand interested in the idea. Within the Stellantis group, the platform would eventually appear under multiple identities, the Opel Rocks-E and the Fiat Topolino. Different styling, different personalities, the same fundamental engineering concept underneath. And that's probably the greatest compliment any platform can receive. Not that it was copied, that it was worth reusing. Because whether you love the AMI or hate it, it achieved something surprisingly rare. It solved the real problem with less. Less speed, less weight, less complexity, less car. And somehow, that made it one of the most interesting vehicles of the last decade. And if you've made it this far, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.